killed Medgar Evers outside of his home, shot him in the back like a coward. I don't think it made a difference where he would have been at the time. It was therefore he was fighting decent living conditions. It was about making sure that Black Americans had the same shot at a good life as everyone else. Now, in his last speech, I've Been to the Mountaintop, he not only addressed the strike, but also broader issues of economic inequality and injustice. He urged support of Black businesses and called for a non-violent march. Dr. King was intertwining his vision with civil rights and economic justice. It was always about economic justice, not just civil rights.
If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dog or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
That was the speech the night before his assassination. From what he said, we know it wasn't just the act of the lone gunman. It was the climax of a society that both overtly and covertly supported white dominance. His death was a wake-up call, but the question is, have we really woken up? His stance on the Vietnam War and his reasons for being in Memphis reveal a leader who was constantly evolving, pushing the boundaries, and showing us what it really means to fight for justice. Now, on the darker side of the chapter is the FBI's surveillance of Dr. King. It wasn't just about keeping tabs on him, but it was a full-blown campaign to undermine him. And the chilling part is they might have had the means to prevent his murder. He was under surveillance by the FBI, kept tabs on him. They also followed him. Also stories of the FBI being just 2 doors away when he was shot. Under J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI saw Dr. King not just as a nuisance, but a threat to the status quo. They wiretapped his phone, bugged his hotel rooms, even tried to discredit him publicly. The level of surveillance, invasive, unethical, frankly terrifying. He believed if the FBI was so closely monitoring Dr. King, could they just have saw that he was about to be assassinated? I mean, it's a serious thing about how our relationship between our leaders who were assassinated and the state. Like, it seems like these times seem like it was 100 years ago, because we know 100 years ago they did, state sanctioned violence was, and we know, of course, with the assassination of Fred Hampton, that was just like clear as day. But yeah, this was it's weird now to sort of think about how the FBI was keeping so much tabs on him that they knew that he was close to being assassinated and they didn't do much about it. It's almost like they were okay with him being assassinated by a citizen so that they don't necessarily have to take the heat. MLK was much bigger on a global scale, so they felt like they could get rid of him, but they felt like somebody else needed to get rid of MLK. That's just my thoughts. That's what I believe, because you can't full-time surveillance on somebody and not know that they is in danger. We don't need to create conspiracies about other black leaders and their involvement with MLK assassination. No, we have enough of conspiracy conspiracy theories dealing with the government and white people, white elected leaders, white powerful leaders who were running the damn government, who was running the damn FBI. Why y'all gotta bring everybody else in? Like, can we deal with this one first? Like, I don't even want to think about the other ones. I haven't even dealt with the white ones. Can we just deal with the white ones first? There was a resolve, like a clear-eyed vision of what was at stake. And he wasn't just addressing the crowd in Memphis. He was speaking to the future generations and standing up against injustice. Was king at his most militant, calling for direct action, not just words. And at some point, I am going to, probably that follow-up episode, I'm going to discuss McCarthyism, because that had a lot to do with the way the FBI targeted MLK by using McCarthyism. And it wasn't just him, it was a few other people. Well, not gonna say a few other people. There were a few other black revolutionary fighters, in the fight for equality and justice for black people. There was a lot of people that was targeted, and this was in the era of McCarthyism. And I'll talk about that in a follow-up episode to this one. You also heard in the clip of his speech where he talks about getting to the promised land. It's like he knew he would make it, but he was reassuring us that the journey doesn't end with him. That baton he passed to us. Keep marching towards that promised land of justice and equality. This speech is a stark reminder that Dr. King's fight wasn't just against segregation, it was against the entire system of oppression. He was challenging us to see the bigger picture, to understand that the struggle is long, but the goal is worth every step. As we honor Dr. King today, let's not sanitize his legacy. Let's not just freeze him in 1963 with the I Have a Dream speech. Let's remember him on that mountaintop in Memphis, staring into the future, challenging us to carry on the fight. Remember Dr. King's legacy and the FBI's role in his life. Let's also think about the broader implication. How do we ensure that the fight for justice doesn't get undermined by the very institutions meant to protect us? We've been dealing with that for our entire existence here. How do we guard against a repeat of history in any form? Think about it. Dr. King wasn't just a dreamer. He was a fighter against the very foundations of white supremacy and the complacency of white liberals. And that fight, my friend, is far from over. Thanks for tuning in to this special MLK Day edition of Political Education for Freedom podcast. I'm Nitra, and I challenge you to think about Dr. King, unvarnished truth, and what it means in our world today, reminding you to keep climbing towards that mountaintop. It's what Dr. King fought for, and it's what we're still fighting for. The struggle for freedom is never really over. Remember to look beyond the surface of history and to understand the depth and breadth of the struggle we continue today. Keep learning, keep fighting, and keep Dr. King's real dream alive.
The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death by an assassin late today as he stood on a balcony in Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. King had planned to lead another civil rights march in Memphis next Monday.
We are going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with through history, but the demands didn't force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple with them. Men for years now have been talking about war and peace, but now no longer can they just talk about it. It is no longer the choice between violence and non-violence in this world. It's non-violence or non-existence. That is where we are today. In the human rights revolution, if something isn't done and done in a hurry to bring the colored peoples of the world out of their long years of poverty, their long years of hurt and neglect, the whole world is doomed. I'm happy that God has allowed me to live in this period, to see what is unfolding. And I'm happy that he's allowed me to be in Memphis. I can remember when Negroes were just going around, as Ralph has said, so often scratching where they didn't itch and laughing when they were not tickled. But that day is all over. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world. We aren't engaged in any negative protest and in any negative arguments with anybody. We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We are saying that we are God's children. And if we are God's children, we don't have to live like we are forced to live. Now, what does all of this mean in this great period of history? It means that we've got to stay together. We've got to stay together and maintain unity. You know, whenever Pharaoh wanted to prolong the period of slavery in Egypt, he had a favorite formula for doing it. What was that? He kept the slaves fighting among themselves. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. I still have a dream. Yeah. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Of striking garbage collectors. Police used riot control gas and nightsticks this afternoon to break up a disturbance among a group of striking garbage men. Part of a group of about 1,000 marchers began rocking a police car, and police waded in.
Anybody who runs around picking on peaceful people is building for trouble.
We probably cannot expect protection of Negro people from brutality and from repression locally. The ear and the power outside of the city of Memphis.
Dr. Martin Luther King has urged the Memphis Negro community to engage in a general work stoppage and school boycott in support of the city's striking sanitation workers.
So I come to commend you, and I come also to say to you that in this struggle you have
the absolute support, and that means financial